Alrighty, guys, it is time for a prep center update. Not just sharing my experience with them, but also some things that have now crossed my mind. I didn't really consider earlier on. I'm going to share those with you. Quite a few different items or type of items don't make sense to send with them, while others I think make complete sense. I also want to touch on after that. I think there's this notion out there that you shouldn't be prepping and packing, it's not worth your time. To a degree, I get it. And in a lot of instances, I do agree with that. But there's quite a few that I would push back on that. And we're going to touch upon those instances and my thoughts on that as well. But with that said, let's just start off with my overall experience, when I got into it, why, etc. So when I really dived into OA, basically cold turkey from RA, I moved states. So I'm in North Carolina now, where there is sales tax, like the majority of states. So anything that gets shipped from to my house for arbitrage, I pay 7% tax on, okay, for the overwhelming majority of products. And so quickly, I'm spending all this time prepping and packing. It's taking up space in my house. I feel like my time could be better spent, et cetera, et cetera. And when you realize a prep center in a tax-free state could not only take that off your plate, but also it could actually be cheaper for any item that's $22 and over. Because if I pay 7% sales tax, $22, 7% of that is basically, I think, $1.54. Okay. And they charge me $1.50 per item. Okay. So when you think of it that way, it's like I don't have to prep and pack, and I'm technically saving money for anything over that. So from that lens, it makes a lot of sense. But let me kind of share with you what I've gathered. For one, the things that make complete sense to me is if I already have things in stock and I'm just replenishing them and they are more than $22, it's a no-brainer because time is not super critical that I turn them around ASAP. I'm replenishing, I'm saving money, I don't have to prep and pack. To me, that's like the clear-cut no-brainer, okay? Also, the more expensive an item, the more you're saving. So just a round number, if I buy a $100 item, I'm paying $7 in sales tax if I have it shipped to me. And then I'm also paying for the bags and the boxes, right? And so if they do it, it's $150. So let's say I buy 100 of those items. That's a difference of $550 per item, right? Times 100. That's $550 in savings. Now, I'm giving you an extreme example. I don't really spend $100 on products and buy 100 of them, but I'm just saying, to paint a picture, the more expensive the item, the more it makes sense to send to them, especially if it's not super critical that they get sent in time of the essence tomorrow, right? So those are kind of the no-brainers that make sense. The more expensive and things you already have in stock. And even if, to me, even if it was $15 and I technically don't win on arbitrage of the sales tax, not having to do it and not having to store it and take up my time is probably worth it. Okay. There are a couple things that don't make sense, in my opinion, that I didn't really consider. I think what happens is so many people like myself do retail arbitrage and they pack everything and you just get burnt out of it. And then so it's just like, whatever, just get it off of my plate, right? But what I've come to realize is for most places like mine, they charge $150 for a 1-pack, $3 for a 2-pack, $450 for a 3-pack, etc. And so because of this, let's say I spend, I don't know, I'm going to think off the top of my head, $15 on a 2-pack, right? And if I prep and pack it myself with tax, so now I'm at like $16. If I send it to them, I'm at $18, right? This could be one of those things that you're only making $5 profit. $5 profit on 16 is like 30%, give or take, right? Now that $18 that I'd have to spend instead of that 16 doesn't really make it worth my ROI criteria, right? And that's one example. So inexpensive bundles, it kind of eliminates that opportunity for that price point I'm talking about right there. Another thing is that this has become very clear to me. Time is of the essence, right? If I order something today, I might receive it tomorrow if I order it to my house. And I could literally have it live FBM right away. And I could have it off to Amazon for FBA if I want to the same day. Contrarily, a prep center, you're going to send it to them. They might get it tomorrow as well. It might not get checked into their, system for a day or two. And then when you create a shipment, assuming you have enough stock that's ready to go out, it's going to also take another couple of days typically for it to go out. So those couple of days might not seem like much, but that could be the make or break of a product being successful or not. And that leads me to my next thing. Something that I like to do a lot of is out of stock items. And with out of stock items, you are literally fighting to be the first one listed on Amazon to charge a premium and have no competition. So if something is time sensitive and I don't already have some in stock, I don't send it to the prep center whatsoever, even if it would be in theory cheaper because I'm not paying sales tax. So even if I spend $50 on an item and I pay $350 in sales tax instead of paying them $150 to prep my stuff, I know that time is so critical. I have to get it in for so out of stock items and things time sensitive. 100% I ship to myself now regardless of price. And that leads me to my next thing is that because of this delayed reaction with prep centers, and again, mine is good. Mine's really good. I'm really happy with them. The fact of the matter is, time is of the essence. If you find very few products command a price and then it just stays at that price regardless of supply and demand, right? Very, very few. A lot of times, the reason buys are successful are because of the timing of the cycle. And the more I do this, the more I realize that. And so it's just a general thought of mine that if anything I'm sending to a prep center, I'm prepared to lose 5-10% of the sales, generally speaking, versus if I were to do it myself, because again, time is so critical and time is of the essence. So I share that not to say good or bad. There's so many ways to do Amazon. And for a lot of people, they never want to touch the product. And if that means not making as much profit on those certain items or avoiding those items altogether, I get it. There's so much opportunity and abundance. But to me, I don't mind prepping and packing that much. I certainly don't do all of it anymore by any means. But knowing that I'm hitting these 50% ROIs on things that don't make sense to a lot of people that aren't willing to prep and pack themselves, it's another way for me to create a moat. A great example is that I've been selling a lot of multi-packs of certain product, and it's like $8 total for the 2-pack, right? And I'm selling it for $30 fast. I have no competition and I want to keep sending them in. So I spend 7%, 56 cents on sales tax versus $3 on sales tax for those items. So that's a big difference percentage wise for the lower cost items. And by the way, there's a lot of low cost items out there that can get you 50, 100% ROI, which is a whole nother conversation piece for another day. That's becoming clear to me. Those percentages are certainly out there. And at the lower price points, the prep center doesn't make as much sense. And this leads me into what I want to kind of wrap things up with. So many people online say prepping and packing isn't worth your time. And I don't disagree with that, but there's some caveats and there's some things that need to be pointed out. That's assuming that you have more and more capital to spend. So if I spend my budget 2 weeks into the month and I use a prep center and time is not of the essence, is it really not worth my time to save a couple $100 while I watch YouTube and I pack some things casually? I don't know. That's for you to decide, right? Some people, again, they don't want stuff in their house. They don't have space for it. I get it. I respect it. But I don't think it should be so cut and dry. Sometimes it does make sense, right? So, and if you factor in, hey, if I send things to a prep center, it's not going to get there for at least a week after when I could do it. I might lose 5-10%. Now, do that at scale, you're talking hundreds or thousands of dollars potentially over the course of a month. What I'm trying to get at is just it's not so cut and dry. And if you don't have more money to spend sourcing, which is your most high value task, I agree, or you don't have the skill set yet where you know where to deploy that capital, then maybe it is worth your time to prep and pack. Everyone's different. I don't think it's that tedious. I certainly don't want to do all of it at the level I'm at now. But just because other people tell you what's worth your time and not, that's for you to decide. You may love watching Netflix and chilling at the end of the night. I didn't mean to say Netflix and chill, but seriously, right? And that could be very valuable to you, where somebody else might not even have a television and they just don't even know what to do. They don't have a family versus some do. Some go to the gym, some don't. Like, it's for you to put a price tag on your time and your activities, but it's not so cut and dry that prepping and packing isn't worth your time, because there's so many opportunities out there to make more money than by using a prep center, sales tax free or not. So overall, though, I love having a prep center. Come Q4, it's going to be great for replens and high ticketed items. It's great. just know that there's a lot of things that you prep and pack yourself can also give you a competitive advantage. And I'm really big on, if you're willing to do certain things that others aren't, you're always going to have a competitive advantage. And one other thing that just popped into my mind, if you're not familiar, I interview a lot of other Amazon sellers. And I would say 90% of the ones that are doing 7 figures a year, the ones that are really crushing it with very high ROI. Now, granted, they may spend more time prepping and packing than you would ever want to, but they're the ones that are doing at least some of it themselves. And as I've shifted and connected with other sellers doing that, and it's inspired me to think that way and look at products that I normally would avoid, I'm having the best month I've ever had right now, and the highest margins I have ever had. So for what it's worth, there's not one way to do this, just things to consider. My 2 cents, my experience, definitely using a prep center in a tax-free state. Nothing bad about that, having that in the back pocket. You don't have to send them 100%. Nothing has to be 100%. So anyway, I'm Jonathan. Duke does Amazon. I appreciate you guys being here. I will talk to you soon. Have a great day. We're on Instagram. Links below for some coupons and discounts and things of that nature. And I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.